Ben, if it's just you and Johnny left, I have a favor to ask you. Explore. Don't stop. You may not think that you need it, but you do. And Johnny certainly does. The multiverse is grand, and the four of us only scratched the surface. Today on the Comic Book Report, Fantastic Four, Fate of the Four by Chip Zdarsky. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Fantastic Four collection I've been itching to read for some time. Of course, I'm talking about the Marvel 2-in-1 series from Chip Zdarsky in Fantastic Four, Fate of the Four. But before we jump in, if you're interested in picking up your own copy of this collection or other collected editions, I highly recommend you check out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. You can save $2 off of your order today if you use my code, TheComicBookReport, at checkout. Please note, if you do make a purchase with my affiliate code or links, I will earn a small commission, but it's a great way to support our channel at no additional cost to you. Thank you for considering. Now on with the review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Chip Zdarsky and illustrated by Jim Cheung, Valerio Schiti, and Ramon K. Perez. The issues in this volume were published by Marvel Comics beginning in 2017. The volume itself collects Marvel 2-in-1 issues 1 through 12 and Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 1. And finally, this oversized hardcover collection comes in at 296 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that oversized hardcover from Marvel Comics. It is funny they call this a Fantastic Four book, since it is technically Marvel 2-in-1 as far as the title of the series itself, but it is labeled Fantastic Four, Fate of the Four. As you can see on the cover, it does predominantly have the Thing and the Human Torch, which is fitting as those are the two main members of the Fantastic Four that feature heavily in this collection. I really do like the dust jacket design. I think it's a really clean layout that showcases nicely some of the artwork we'll see inside the collection. I like the blues it uses on the font as well. It feels very Fantastic Four-y, which I enjoy. As far as the spine, I love seeing the predominantly white spine. It does fit very nicely compared to some of the other oversized hardcovers that Marvel's released. Overall, just a really stunning dust jacket design that immediately made me want to dive in and read this volume, which I guess is a great commendation for this dust jacket art. I do want to do one quick look at the dust jacket now that I've removed it. I'll show you again those interior flaps so you can just get an idea of what this entire print looks like before we take a look at the under the dust jacket artwork for this collection. I do love the art they chose for not only the dust jacket but the under the dust jacket art. It's a beautiful wraparound cover on the hardback book itself. Really stunning artwork that showcases a key moment in this book. Really fun stuff. Love seeing when Marvel and DC and some of these other publishers do the actual print of art on the hardback itself and give us more than just dust jacket artwork. It feels like an added feature and gives me more bang for my buck, metaphorically speaking. And now we'll do a quick spread for that cover so you can see the wraparound effect of the hardback art itself. Very beautiful stuff. Really love the exteriors they gave us for this collection. Really solid, and it again made me so excited to dive in and read. And now before we go further, I just want to do a quick look at the binding itself. It is a nice binding here, binding those nice glossy print pages. Overall, no complaints on the binding. I'm really happy I'm able to give you a quick look here, just for the collectors out there that want to take a better look. Overall, no complaints from me. And now we can make our way to the collection proper. As we open this collection, we're treated to some of the standard front matter. Of course, we have the title pages, publication information, and things like that, before jumping into the Marvel 2-in-1 issue 1 that kicks off this series from Chip Zdarsky. Now, before we go much further, I do want to give a little bit of context for this collection for those that maybe want to read this and are unclear when exactly this takes place. The best way I can say this is that this picks up after the event of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars. Without going into too many spoilers for Secret Wars, the culmination of that event essentially had Reed Richards, his wife and children, and some of the Future Foundation, his team of youngsters that were helping to shape the future, basically trying to restore the Marvel multiverse, leaving them kind of out of the main 616 universe at the time. The Thing and Human Torch believe them to be dead, and this series takes place in the wake of that situation. And we really see the two characters dealing heavily with the ideas of grief, losing not only their teammates, but also basically their family, and in the Human Torch's case, their actual blood family. So the story takes place within that kind of belief that Reed and Sue and the kids and everyone are gone. They've passed away after the events of Secret Wars, and now it's just the Human Torch and the Thing left. The Fantastic Four is no more, and what happens next? We have the Thing basically just sad and just in a state of grief and trying to do the best he can. We have him kind of doing a speech at sort of a charity organization honoring the fallen members of the Fantastic Four, while we have the Human Torch almost, killing himself in a car accident, doing these kind of death-defying stunts, just sort of aimless and unclear how to process all this grief he's feeling. So it's a really volatile time for these two heroes as they're really just still actively grieving and trying to figure out what to do with their lives after this stunning loss. In this space, in pops Doctor Doom, who is basically sitting in a mantle as a kind of Iron Man while Tony Stark is no longer here as well. This Doom basically shows up to give the Thing an orb that contains the last will and testament from Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Reed basically prepared a message for Ben in the eventuality that only him and Johnny are left, and they died in the way that they are presumed dead after Secret Wars. Basically, Reed implores Ben to keep exploring, to continue on, to have these adventures, saying that Ben really needs it for himself, but Johnny particularly needs it. He kind of reasons that the team of the Fantastic Four was much more than just a superhero team. They were a team of adventurers and explorers, and that kind of zest for life and the spirit of adventure needed to continue on for the two of them, even in the absence of Reed and Sue. To this end, Reed essentially hints at where he's hidden this device for Ben to find, called the Multisect. It's basically a device that will let them jump around the Marvel multiverse and have continued explorations and adventures. Basically, Doom wanted this thing for himself, but he can't make heads or tails after stealing this orb, so he gives it to the Thing, reasoning that he might as well have it anyway, just to hear Reed one last time. We know that Doom has some more nefarious, selfish motives here, but at any rate, the Thing takes this information and is able to find the Multisect bestowed upon him from Reed. He then goes to the Human Torch, though, and says, hey, we need to have all these adventures because Reed and Sue are still alive. At this point in time, Ben knows this to be a lie, but it's the only way he can think of to get the Human Torch on board to honor Reed's dying wish of exploring. So the Human Torch goes on this mission with the Thing, believing they're looking for their lost family members who were presumed dead across the multiverse. The Thing knows that they are gone, and this is just his way of helping the Human Torch through grief and trying to honor the dying wish again of his fallen friends and family members. Well, in the midst of all of this other setup, we also find out that the remaining Fantastic Four team is slowly beginning to lose their powers. Essentially, they're saying that because they encountered the cosmic rays together, their powers are actually all linked together. So if there's ever a period where they are out of proximity with each other for a given amount of time, they slowly begin to lose their powers, and all of their powers begin to degrade and start to disappear. The Human Torch realizes this first, as he's not able to keep up his flame as long as before or as powerfully, and even the Thing admits that he's not as strong as he used to be. So in the midst of all of these other multiverse adventures that they're going to be having, and presumably looking for their fallen comrades, at least in the eyes of the Human Torch, they're also losing their abilities, which creates this kind of sense of stakes or a ticking clock mechanic that I really think helped drive the story. It gave it a sense of urgency, and what is overwhelmingly a kind of grief narrative, they also had a sense of timing. And I really liked that. I think that it was a brilliant idea to add that wrinkle to the storytelling. Again, it just boiled in some just added conflict for the team and the character dynamics, and I thought it was a ton of fun. At any rate, they decide to jump through the multiverse, but they need help in their travels, so they recruit a brainy scientist character who has her own motives for trying to help them. We find out as we go through the novel, she's trying to basically find a multiversal replacement for her comatose sister in the multiverse somewhere, and we also have a stowaway on their adventures in the form of Doctor Doom, again, who's in this kind of Iron Man Doom mantle at the moment, but he's basically joining them as well to try to find more means of power, or whatever Doom does to be Doom. And so the four of them kind of end up in these multiversal adventures. The story really proceeds from there. I would say overall, between the 12 issues and the annual, there are two big kind of story arcs, but it all flows into each other very nicely. Essentially, in the first story arc, it all culminates where we find out in one of the universes that Doctor Doom has switched bodies with Galactus and has devoured the rest of the world's stars, everything in the universe but planet Earth, and is about to devour that next before the Thing and Human Torch show up to try to stop them. In this universe, the Human Torch has been, I think, held captive. The Thing has long since died, and Reed and Sue are separated. Reed has been consumed with guilt and failure at this situation with Doom being unable to stop him, and Sue is the lead director of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a really interesting story. We have some cameos from Wolverine and She-Hulk from this different universe, and it leads to just this epic battle. They loop in Emma Frost and the Silver Surfer, and it's really just spectacular to behold. At one point, this Doom Galactus says that he's going to find a way into another universe to start devouring there as well. So we get, again, a great sense of stakes for not only that universe, but for the 616 universe, presumably. At any rate, they stop him. They continue their kind of multiversal exploits and adventures. The annual gives us some great backstory for Doctor Doom. We see that they actually restarted the Council of Reeds, as we saw from the Jonathan Hickman era. That Council of Reeds, apparently it's back. We really find out that Reed is maybe still alive somewhere in the multiverse or beyond. And going into the second arc, we have this kind of crazy wasteland planet that is ruled by an evil version of Spider-Man. It's really wacky. It feels kind of like a Mad Max kind of deserty wasteland universe. This universe is where the Thing and Human Torch will spend a lot of their time in the later arc in this collection. Basically, they end up stranded there after a while with Doom and the scientist character leaving. The two of them eventually lose their powers. In the midst of all of this, we have the Mad Thinker trying to create his own Fantastic Four. Now that Reed's gone, he wants to be the new Mr. Fantastic, and he's kind of going crazy, creating all these artificially powered people to create his own Fantastic Four. They end up in this universe as well. The Thing and the Human Torch have to fight them with no powers left, basically demonstrating that they are so much more than their superpowers that made them just a great team. At any rate, after that, when it looks like everything's done and the chips are down and the two are defeated, in pops Sue, who basically her proximity helps kickstart their powers. They get their powers back. They then believe that Reed and Sue are still alive somewhere out there. They save the day, end up back in the main universe, and everything's kind of tied up in a nice bow. We have the Thing and Reed kind of hashing it out of how could you still be alive? How could you not take us with you? How could you do this? We have the Human Torch kind of trying to come to terms with being lied to by the Thing and being lied to by the rest of his family, and there's a lot of character drama there, but it all ends with a happy ending, and basically the Fantastic Four realize they did it all out of love all the way around, and they're united again. A great, really, really heartfelt ending that is definitely deserved, especially with how moving the character dynamics were throughout this entire run. I think the only kind of soft spot in this collection, and it's the thing that made me maybe grade this slightly lower than I would have, is simply because I feel like the reunion issue was undercut. I don't know if there's a Fantastic Four issue that handles this reunion better, or there's some issue I missed, but I feel like it all built up to, they're still alive, we're going to reunite, and then it skipped directly to them hashing out the fact that they were still alive. We didn't actually get to see them all come together in one moment. I really do want to know if that exists in a comic somewhere else. Please let me know if you happen to know offhand, because with what I'm reading, it felt like there was almost a bit of a jump where the actual reunion should have taken place, and that was sorely missed in this collection because I believe it was absolutely earned reading this series, because it was so much about getting the team back together and how this dynamic works and how much they all love each other, and to skip over that reunion, it was a real shame. But honestly, it wasn't a significant enough drawback to really ream this collection, as this was such a strong maxi series. I absolutely loved it. It was such a rewarding read from start to finish. Love seeing the character studies on both the Human Torch and the Thing, and what they do in the wake of unspeakable tragedy. I think that we really get to see an inside look at some of these characters and really what made them and the team so great. I think jumping through the multiverse was just an added fun wrinkle that let this concept go even further than it maybe could have in just the mainstream 616 universe. I think that the character voice was absolutely well tuned. And once again, we have Chip Zdarsky just demonstrating a really amazing grasp of narrative. I know for me, it really combines some of my favorite elements I've read from Zdarsky in the past. I know I've been a big fan of his ongoing Daredevil run. I love all of the stuff he's brought to that character and that mythos, but I also really loved his time on Howard the Duck. I know I reviewed that omnibus not too long ago, and I think that that really reminds me of this series in a weird way, in that Howard the Duck had so much heart to it. It's almost hard to describe, but I really, really loved how much compassion and love was felt with that character in the midst of all of the fun, laughter, hijinks. And I think in the same way, we have it in this Marvel 2-in-1 series and Fate of the Four. There is so much heart here, even though there is some laughs, but a lot of action and drama and character dynamics. There's just a really heavy, hearty, gripping center here that makes you feel so much emotion for these characters and this bond they shared. And I really feel like that's a mark of great writing, that I could have so much of this kind of empathic, sympathetic feelings towards these fictional characters. Just really, really well done, Mr. Zdarsky. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend this for fans of Chip Zdarsky or fans of the Fantastic Four, although it might be beneficial to read something like Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars prior to reading this. Sure, you can skip it and this will fill in the gaps for you, but it does feel like an epilogue to that, as well as a kind of bridge into Dan Slott's Fantastic Four era, as far as I can tell. But I do think that you can still enjoy this without reading or knowing much about what happened with the Fantastic Four around this time. I think the collection does a decent job of kind of filling you up on what you need, but I think reading Secret Wars, this would be a great prerequisite before diving into this collection to have it pay off even more. Switching from the narrative standpoint to more of the visual storytelling with the artist, I absolutely love the art of Cheung in this collection. He did the first few issues and then a couple kind of strewn throughout the collection. I think of all the art in the collection, this was my favorite. I love the kind of hatchwork details with the inking and the outlining, and I think that there's more of a realism and grit to that artwork from Cheung in this collection. I think it's the most visually stimulating and eye-popping, and like I said, I kind of just preferred it. I think it's some ways I would have loved to see that throughout the rest of the collection. However, the art we get from Perez and Sheedy throughout the collection as well is definitely really strong. I don't think that there was a weak artist in this collection, and if you're someone who likes to get an array of artists every time you have a collected edition, this is definitely a good one to get, as again, all the artists are really going strong. I just personally prefer the art from Cheung, but again, all the art was really fantastic. I think some of the art styles were a little more cartoony than others, Cheung again being my favorite, but it's all pretty great. I know that it transitions quite a bit into the second half of the collection, transitioning into a more animated feel for the artwork, but all really stunning. It was reprinted beautifully. The only other thing I wanted to touch on with the art, I know someone mentioned when I read reviews online that some of the art was kind of cut off, and it cut off a word bubble or two in this one image. It's referring to this piece of art in the beginning when there's a flashback when the Thing is thinking about Sue Storm. I actually don't know if this was intentional or not. I don't have the single issues, but there are a few panels that have word bubbles that appear to be cut off in the margin. But based on the kind of flashbacky, weird nature of those panels, I'm not sure if that's intentional, where he's only remembering part of the conversation. At any rate, my copy didn't have any other instances of this. It was just during a brief flashback sequence for a panel or two, and it's done in such a way that that might have been an artistic choice. Maybe someone in the comments can correct me, but I was surprised to see those reviews on some product reviews about them kind of mismanaging the oversized format. I really didn't feel like that was the case for this printing, other than that one brief instance, which again, I'm not totally clear if it was intentional or not. I don't feel like I missed out on a single thing, and based on how it was formatted, I would absolutely believe that it was intentional to leave part of a word bubble out, as it was depicting a kind of scrambled, panicked flashback. At any rate, I thought it was a great printing. I love the oversized format. I thought the art was all reproduced absolutely beautifully. Don't have a single bad thing to say about that throughout the collection. You saw a couple of those extra art features and extras at the back, and that really does it for the Fate of the Four. Now all that's left is to give this collection a grade. For this beautiful spotlight on two of the most fantastic characters in all of Marvel history, coupled with some beautifully detailed and vivid artistic work throughout, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Fantastic Four: Fate of the Four a B+. This was an absolute great recommended read for any Fantastic Four reader out there. I personally loved it. I think the only thing that kept it from being an A territory was I would have loved to see a better reunion with the main Fantastic Four characters at the resolution of this storyline, but I was still really happy with the reunion we did receive in the issue. I thought that this was really well paced, had a great payoff, and was a fantastic standalone maxi series, though it would help to read Secret Wars prior to reading. An easily above average read that I think Chip Zdarsky fans out there might need to check out, because I think that this one may have gone under the radar. But let me know what you think of Fantastic Four: Fate of the Four. Thank you for watching the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like and comments, and until next time, have a good one.